Where do you see ISL now going, Ravi? Like, is it going to happen this season? How do you see the future?
For the 10 years that the ISL has been in existence for, I think it's provided a lot of livelihoods to a lot of different people across different sectors. The league does collapse. The outcome would be bad. New proposal indicates that you're going to be losing even more money than you have been historically, having already sunk. I mean, based on estimates, anything between 200 to 300 crores.
If you're a good footballer in India, you're potentially not making even 10% of that income somewhere else.
We have just been in such a rat race to try and just outdo each other so much that we have artificially increased pricing to such an extent. If a child is not already familiar with the game in terms of his comfort level with the ball by the age of 9 and 10, he's already behind the 8 ball.
One kind of memory that's etched in my mind is the 2015 final. FC Goa reaches the finals against Chennai.
Yeah. Next thing we know, there's a Times of India article that shows the player sitting in a police station, and it escalated beyond being true to the fact that we are a club that is based in Goa. So we want to be as local in our connect as we can be.
I always have seen that Goa probably has a special relationship with the fans. So where do you see ISL now going, Ravi? Like, is it going to happen this season? How do you see the future? What's your take on that?
We're diving right into it.
Into it. Let's dive right into it. I think everyone wants to hear about that.
I mean, my guess is probably as good as yours at this point in time. We're all obviously hopeful that the ISL does indeed happen, just because there's a lot of livelihoods that are dependent on this. For the 10 years that the ISL has been in existence for, I think it's provided a lot of livelihoods to a lot of different people across different sectors. Now, remember, this is a very specialized profession. There's a lot of people who do very specialized work within the league structures or the commercial structures and stuff. So we're hoping that for the sake of everybody involved in the league, that it does indeed happen. But I think there are a few hurdles that we need to overcome to try and get there.
So talking about the hurdles, so the way I understand it is that 15 years back, there was a 15-year contract signed between FSDL, which is Reliance, and AIFF, wherein Reliance will pay a fixed fee to AIFF in lieu of the rights to run the league. Now, this contract has expired. Reliance potentially is offering a different kind of a commercial structure, which is more equity share. And AIFF, on the other hand, wants to continue potentially a similar structure where they get a fixed fee, which is in tune of around 50 crores a year. And I think the difference in opinion in terms of what the commercial structure should be is probably what I understand is the biggest bottleneck. Is that a fair understanding, or are there other kind of underlying issues there?
Yeah, I think, everything that is underpinned in any sport is, of course, the commercial structure first. So I think that is something that needs to get sorted out. The current agreement exists only up until December of this year. And that's why the reluctance from FSDL to get the league kick-started, because what happens after that, right? You can't have a league stop halfway through. That is where they want to get some clarity in terms of not just for next season, but also for the future as well. And I think to that extent, there is a certain amount of fairness to that, because not just them, even VS clubs want to know what is the next step. Because a lot of clubs over the years, you had the opportunity to work with one of them and lead some of the decision making there. You would have noticed that there's a lot of money that's been put into this, right? And no football club in the country currently is profitable. So if there is more money to be spent, you want to understand what is the end product of it all, right? So in that sense, that is why there's a pause. Of course, there needs to be agreements reached, because now, based on the new structure that you gleaned upon, there is 3 entities, right? I'm calling them entities, but there's a lot more stakeholders in it. There's one is the AIFF, one is FSDL, and then there's, of course, the segment of the clubs as well. They will have to work in unison and work together as one entity, because as per the new structure, AIFF would have a certain percentage, FSDL would have a certain percentage, and the clubs would have it. Clubs would actually have the majority of the percentage right now, right? It's not very dissimilar to models that are proposed in European football, even the MLS as well to a certain extent, right? They are structured in a very similar manner. So I think that's the structure that they're moving towards. What happens is, of course, the economics change up, right? Historically, it's just been 50 crores that goes to the AIFF, based on which they take that, let's call it a development fee or a solidarity fee, or however you might want to do it, towards the development of football in the country. And then FSDL was managing the operating expense of the leagues, and the clubs would have to then look after their own expenses while also paying a franchise fee. And in return, they would also get some central revenue, right? So therefore, that's the existing structure. What needs to happen is now to understand whether the first structures, the pins all need to fall into place one by one. first one, obviously, that needs to fall into place is the existing, even before you get the clubs into the equation, whether FSDL and AIFF are on the same page. Because from what we are understanding media reports, because we've not actually had direct interactions with either one on their side of the agreement, AIFF wants to continue with the 50 crores, of course, because who doesn't, right? Everybody would love to have 50 crores sitting in their bank account as an automated process. FSDL does not see it that way. They feel like this is an opportunity where we can move more towards traditional sort of, league structures around the thing, where decision making is not just left to one entity, but rather everybody has an equal say in the matter.
And the risk as well.
Exactly. Right. So then that means more skin in the game, more responsibility, more sort of, decision making that's geared towards a collective effort rather than individual interests or, sort of where one might feel like, they're getting an upper hand over the other and stuff. So that's where we're stuck. But of course, all of this is dependent when the Honorable Supreme Court lifts the barrier that is currently placed on any extension talks between FSDL and AIFF. So I think we're all waiting for the Supreme Court verdict to come.
When is that expected to happen? It was supposed to be this month, right?
Great question. I think we're all hoping that it was yesterday, but this day that we're hoping for doesn't quite seem to. I mean, courts have been active for the best part of 15 days now at the time of us recording this. But we're yet to get any indication. I know that this is also, or at least I believe that this has some sort of connection to what the National Sports Bill that is also in discussion in the Parliament. So I think once that is passed, then this is possibly the next step. But this can't come soon enough because every day that we are having a delay in sort of understanding what the league structure and general governance in the country of sort of, where all the money will be sort of invested looks like, the more we're having an erosion of confidence from sort of the corporates that are there in the country, and also the owners also particularly worried, right? Because they've invested so much money into it. The owners are worried. I'm sure FSDL is worried, and I'm sure as a consequence, AIFF is worried because ultimately you've brought the game to a standstill to a very large extent.
So let's play out some scenarios, right? So scenario one is that what FSDL is proposing goes through.
Yeah.
Right. Now, the way I see it is obviously all the clubs are losing money. One of the clubs are obviously responsible for all the player wages, their stays, and part execution of their home grounds and so on and so forth. Yeah. So all clubs potentially are losing anywhere between 7, 8, 10 crores to 20, 25 crores, depending on what their budgets might be. Yeah. And that number used to be much higher back in the day, and that's come down, right? Yeah. Now, the understanding is that centrally league is also losing some money despite getting some central revenue, and back in the day there was obviously license fee and so on and so forth. But if the league wasn't losing money, they probably would have been more comfortable paying AIFF the fixed fee, right? So I believe the new structure is more comprehensive in terms of sustainability, right? And that's the structure. Now if this plays out from an equity perspective, if the league loses money, does that mean AIFF will have to actually fund 14 or 16% of the losses, whatever they own? Or in this new structure, they don't have to fund the losses, they just don't get the money?
No, the premise of it is that if everybody has skin in the game, everybody then contributes equally to its success and failure. So which means if there's a profit, everybody splits it equally. If there's a loss, then everybody splits it equally. That's the understanding that we have at this point in time. Whether AIFF is accepting of that, they're happy to accept that there's a say 14% loss that they have to bear is the big question.
Okay, so in this scenario, if this deal was to go through, how would a club react to this? So AIFF, like you said, the first pain is obviously between FSDL and AIFF. Let's say they somehow come to an agreement of this structure. Now in this structure, we are saying that not only will the teams and the clubs lose the money that they're already losing, but they have equity in the league. And if at a league level there is a loss, there is also kind of footing that bill, a part of that bill. How would as the chief executive of a top club, like how would you react to that?
Yeah, I mean, that's not a great scenario that you want to take back to the ownership or the board of directors, is it? In the sense that saying that, the new proposal indicates that you're going to be losing even more money than you have been historically having already sunk. I mean, based on estimates, anything between 200 to 300 crores depending on the club that you're working with. The only way that this structure would then function is if we try and bring the operating costs down to ensure that the losses are not at the numbers that they're at. Because I think most of the owners have understood that there's a certain amount of loss that will be incurred year on year. I think most are, okay, is possibly me being very generous. most are accepting of the fact that there is a certain amount of loss that is being made. And I think some have begun to understand that this is sort of the reality, and it will require a little bit more patience to try and break even and find a more sustainable sort of avenue to continue to run clubs. But to tell them that you're going to be losing even more money might not be a good idea, right? So the only way we can bring that number back down to where it needs to be is if we seriously start attacking the costs that are involved in running a football club to begin with. Because one, we can control our own P&Ls, right? And then after that, if we can make the league a little bit more commercially viable by getting in a broadcasting deal that allows all the clubs to get some sort of central revenue coming in, which is somewhat allowing you to sort of, take away some of the costs that you have, that might make a little bit of sense. But also, I think there's much more other things that we can always address, right? I mean, the costs of running are largely the price that you pay for a stadium, the salaries that you pay to the players, just the operating expenses, the travel that you have to undertake to move around the country and all that. So all of these things can be looked at, I think. But this will only happen when we have everybody sitting at the table, and it's not the way it's being sort of plugged right now. It is me versus them versus us, etc.
It's a collective decision making.
It has to be A plus B plus C. It's not A versus B, B versus C.
Yeah. Right. I mean, there's a bunch of things. I mean, of course, the biggest cost is the player salaries, right? But there's also operating, like there are some models in the West, like for example, US has a conference system because they want not to travel between East and West Coast all the time. And of course, India is not as large, but still there is significant cost, with home and away. But I think it all boils down to player salaries, right? And how do you see that getting fixed, or not, or that's not a possibility? So the way I always think about this is, let's say you are a top engineer in our country. You go anywhere in the world. You can take a job in the US, you can take a job in Europe, you can take a job in Asia, whether those countries are inferior or superior in terms of economics of our country. Your market salary, your market value potentially might be plus or minus 50, 60, 70, 80%. Right? If you are a good designer, it'll be similar. If you're I don't know, you name the profession. But if you're a good footballer in India, you're potentially not making even 10% of that income somewhere else.
Right.
So is it really fair that the whole ecosystem, trust me, I love the fact that players are making money. I'm in the grassroots of football. So it actually gives us a lot of hope that, our kids can play through the system and then make a good living. So I have nothing against the salaries. The issue I have is that there is an ecosystem which is bleeding like hell. The clubs are losing money. The league is losing money. Broadcaster at best is generous because there's a relationship, and all of that is also very kind of convoluted. But everyone in the ecosystem is losing money. The agents are also not really making a killing, to be honest. The grassroots is suffering. The youth development is not at the best because of all the losses. But players are making a killing, right? Is that and probably that is also globally it's a similar scenario. But is that a fair scenario in our system?
So I think globally there's always been inflation in player salaries and also transfer fees. If you look at it, I mean, historically, say 10, 15 years ago, the average transfer fee spent in a European system, right? I'm taking the Indian ecosystem, was around, say, $30-35 million. Was you're talking about top line figures. Now those numbers easily cross 100. So there is inflation, right? Just because the game is growing, etc. and so forth. But the game is going commercially in those countries, and that's why they're able to spend a lot more money. Has the game grown so much commercially where we all have a set of sort of sponsors running to us to say, we want to work with you guys, we want to partner up with you guys? No, that's not the case. What has indeed though gone up? I mean, for example, in the 2017-18 season, there was an ISL draft, right, where essentially all the players that were existing in the market were put into a pool, were put in front of the clubs, and each one went about picking their players and all that. And I think the average spend for a football club in that season, I'm just talking about just the Indian players, let's take the foreigners out of it because they were not part of the draft. The average spend for a football club would have been nothing more than about 10 to 11 crores for the entire set of players. Now, some of those players continue to exist. Actually, large majority of them continue to exist in the current ISL ecosystem. We're talking about 7-8 years down the line, right? And that same pool of players now commands an average expense per squad of around 26 crores. So we're talking about an increase of almost 70 to 80%. Has the quality increased by 70 to 80%?
Or the commercial reality?
Not really. It's just that as clubs, I think we're the biggest guilty parties in this scenario. we have just been in such a rat race to try and just outdo each other so much that we have artificially increased pricing to such an extent. I don't blame the player, because the player is like, hey, if somebody's giving me a better number, why should I not take that deal, right? What it has done in the process, I think, it's also killed ambition, because there are some players who I think who have the talent to have been able to go to Europe and give it a fair crack there. But when you're being offered, I mean, mind-boggling sums of
20 times what,
4 crores a year across an average of 5 years. They're like, why would I even give all this up? Because if I'm getting, say, 4 crores, we're talking about $350,000, $360,000. If I take the same player from this geography and drop him into European democratic, any European demographic
country, it'll be a tenth of that salary.
He'll be given exactly $40,000. So the player's going, why would I sacrifice all this? Because I also have personal financial ambition. I also have a family to look after, and you can't blame the player.
Sometimes we put players in a different pedestal as like regular professionals. Like you and I might take a job in a different city just for better prospects, right? So having said it that the players are like the salaries are inflated, and that's a major concern. I also believe on the flip side, it's also demand supply economics, right? Like you said, if I'm willing to put extra money to win a league, and which is also, I guess, fair. Like if I'm a billionaire, I run a club, and I feel like, okay, I'm losing 15 crores running this club. I might as well lose 20 and at least try and win the league. And I guess that's fine. Like, I mean, that's a decision that the owners are probably taking, but that makes the system, the whole ecosystem, very disbalanced in a way.
Yeah, it does. So, I mean, I think if you look at the 17-18, 18-19, 19-20 season, the great thing about ISL in those seasons, despite having more number of foreigners on the pitch, one, I think, was that the quality of football was better. And two, also that the competitive balance was a lot better. In the sense, like, on any given day, the team that was placed 7th could probably knock the team off the top if they've, had a bad day at the office. And vice versa as well, when the team that was at the top could also, beat the ones at the bottom a fairly decent, comfortable mark. So it was a completely on any particular given day, what quality showed up and how well they were prepared for that game. Now, I think there are some games which are foregone conclusions where more or less what the thing is going to be, just because there's such a difference, right? Because, like you mentioned, an average club is losing around, say, 20 to 25 crores is my rough estimate. But there are clubs that would possibly be on the higher end close to 40 odd, and there are clubs on the lower end would be close to 6, 7. So it's a big disparity, right? What happens is, essentially, when you keep pushing the margin higher there, the average salary of the player is going up and up, which invariably means that you're bringing everybody else up as well. So let's take player X as an example, right? So say I was playing player X, say 30 lakhs per year, and all of a sudden Vivek has come in and said, listen, I want to win the league this season, so I'm going to pay this guy 1 crore. So now player Y, who might be marginally worse than player X,
would say I should get 80 lakhs.
If he's on 1, why am I not at 60 or 70 at least? So the player I was playing 32 now, all of a sudden,
the whole range kind of
everybody's
shifts.
moved up. So essentially it's the same thing, right? And if you look at the talent that has come through the ranks over the years, right, from, say, when, let's take 17, 18 as the base values, when players sort of, had some salaries fixed against that, because before that they were splitting their time between I-League and ISL. So I don't really consider that as the full year values.
Correct.
But so 17, 18 was when they were permanently with their clubs, because it became a full season, right? At that time, if you look at the players that are there, and from then on the players that have developed, there's still 80% of those players still moving around.
Still are in
right?
the system.
They've played musical chairs, but they're still in the ecosystem. But that same player who at that point in time was earning, I think of example that we picked up a player in that draft, without trying to name the names, a player who costed us about 28 to 30 lakhs, I think. And this is public information, right? It was there. Everybody knew what the price you were paying for the draft.
Absolutely.
Now that same player, as of today, is on 2.5 crores.
Jesus.
Right? But what is the value of that player over the years that has allowed this number to grow so drastically? Commercial value, not particularly, because I don't have a raft of sponsors coming and telling me that, hey, listen, because you have that player on your team, I'm going to pump this much money in because he's providing value, right? Has he given me output on the pitch? Yes, to a certain extent.
As much as what the value was.
But as much as what
not
the
like
value
a
was
10x
then.
now.
Correct, exactly. He's not, if he scored 1 goal for me in the 17-18 season, he's not going to score 10 goals for me after that. It's the same 1-2, 1-2. It's just the premium that you're paying for every goal and assist or a clean sheet has essentially gone up. Your per minute cost has just gone up essentially. But the player continues to remain the same because the players who are playing then have already hit their glass ceiling, right? Honestly, if you want the game to grow, you need talent to come through.
Yeah.
The ISL initially was greatly successful because there was a certain novelty factor attached to it. There were celebrity, let's say, past players who were past pros, who were big names coming into it. The league has been superbly organized. There's no denying it, right? The professionalism is top notch. You can't put a foot wrong and not expect somebody to remind you that there are professional standards being set. So in that sense, you cannot fault anyone for that, right? Because now people understood what it is like to work in a professional league and not run it the way it has been run historically, right? So you need to have things on point, things work to a certain order. So in that sense, there's no denying that professionalism is kicked in. But at the same time, the product on display continues to remain more or less the same. We have not grown our viewership or audience that much more for us to be able to. It's not gone from 100 million viewers in India to all of a sudden 500 million viewers, because if that had happened, naturally, of course, the salaries have gone up, but also the commercial appeal would have also gone up, right? We would not have had a problem where the league has not had a principal sponsor for the past 3-4 years, right? After a hero left, we'd have not had anybody else.
Actually, last season there were no sponsors. I mean, this season there was probably one or so.
Exactly. Yeah, right. So because people are saying that, okay, I mean, we know, I'll tell you firsthand, I mean, forget about the league and everything. I know what sort of attendance we're getting in the stadium, right? Historically, we have an 18,500 capacity stadium. We were historically averaging around 15.5, 16,000. Now we're down to 10.5, 11,000, right? And this is again subject to the mood of how the fans are feeling about the team. If the team is not competitive, very vocal, we will stay away. If the product that we see on the pitch is not showing us value for what we're coming there to watch,
we'd rather
not come, right? So which means then ultimately you're forced to infuse more and more money to try and build a competitive squad, which invariably means that then these player salaries are going up. And to retain the interest of the fans, because ultimately the sponsors coming and asking, saying, okay, hold on a second.
Where are the numbers?
Yeah. Tell me your viewership, tell me your stadium attendance, tell me your digital engagement. So if you do not build that anticipation and that hope that this team is going to be competitive, you're going to fall short on all of these numbers, which means I'm invariably walking corpse in the sense, like at some point or the other, I will be put to the ground.
So let's come back to these scenarios. So in scenario one, where somehow AIFF agrees to this model, there's probably more pressure on the clubs. And the only way that can kind of be sustainable is to rejig some cost structures of the league. Whether it is, they look at the top expenses, of course, players being one, and then of course there's travel and this and that, right? Now, if that doesn't work out, if AIFF is not willing to play ball with the new structure, of course, either FSDL will have to kind of change their stance, at least have some sort of a fee, maybe not 50 crores, but 10, 20 crores, somewhere in the middle. But let's say if that breaks down completely, where does ISL stand after that? Like, what do you see happening? Where does the top level league of our nation, where does it stand?
It's a great question. I don't think anybody has particularly thought so far down the line and figured out that, okay, this is the answer to that question. But I can tell you that the answer will be, whatever the outcome is, if the league does collapse, the outcome will be bad. I'll tell you why, quite simply, right? FSDL is backed by the biggest conglomerate in the country, right? The club owners, pick any club owner, they're reputable people who've invested a lot of their time, sweat, and significant amounts of funding to get football off the ground, to give it some visibility, to have it gain global recognition. Now, if you can, clubs in Spain, Argentina, Australia.
People know India.
Everybody knows that there's a concept called the ISL, and that is the thing that is uplifting Indian football at this point in time. It's the thing that has put them on the global map, right? So if all of these owners now say that, hold on a second, we do not have the corporate backing, so therefore we do not see a lot more sense in us spending and investing this sort of money into it, because if they're not going to touch this league, then who will? Then if the owners also decide that maybe it is time for me also to either reduce my spending outright or fold altogether, it'll set Indian football back by at least 15 to 20 years. And I'll tell you why. Because after that, even if anybody with the noblest of intentions does go into it,
there's always going to be a red flag.
It'll take significant amount of convincing and coaxing to bring any corporate entity into the thing. Because the first question mark would be, if the biggest conglomerate in the country and these collection of club owners couldn't do it, what confidence are you giving me that we can do this, right? So it will set it back 20 years. Even as a player, right? Like you mentioned, you're in grassroots football and you've seen players now earn good money through the years and all that, which means that in India, parents now begin to consider sport as a realistic career choice and an option. Right now, tomorrow we have players in our youth ecosystem, right? I mean, this is a problem I'm dealing with currently right now. I have players who begin at the age of 12 up until 19. We do not have any clarity that we can provide to them on, when training will start this season, when they will be playing, etc. and so forth. So somebody at the age of 12 and 13 might not be so badly affected because they're still seeing this as,
maybe not.
I'm dipping my toes into the water, but I'm not really completely into it. But an 18 to 19-year-old who was saying, hold on a second, I'm going to crack the FC Goa first team. I'm going to get a professional contract.
And already having put so many years.
And I've put 8 to 9 years of my time into this. My parents have allowed me to give studies a little bit of a backseat and focus on my footballing aspirations. Now he goes, hold on a second. If that professional contract from FC Goa is not coming next season, that allows me to bring home some money, my parents are going to be like, why are you still in this? Drop it. Go and pick up something else or focus on your education to ensure that you make something of yourself. Now, if that happens, you break the chain. Once the chain is broken, you have to restart from scratch because all of those 7 years of training that you've built up, even 7 months of dormancy will make it a struggle.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you look at it right now, the 2 years of COVID, which was obviously of nobody's fault and doing, meant that a lot of the clubs had to pause their youth development activities just because we were simply not allowed to interact.
Yeah.
Right. And clubs kept it to a bare minimum just because of the safety norms and protocols and everything, which meant, I mean, we know it this firsthand. We've noticed it. The crop of players that were in those age groups, they don't have quite the same technical and tactical base that we noticed from others because their training stopped and for a while, and the concepts were forgotten, which means we've had to re-drill them into it, which means that's why we know and we're fully aware that there's a lull that we're going to expect come 2 years down the line because that batch will then be graduating. The talent that we're seeing there is not the same as what it was before. In the ones before and the ones that we're seeing after. That gap we feel will be realistically there for all of us to observe and notice. And now imagine if you bring this entire system down, right? Because sure, we're talking about the league and everything and all that, but clubs have also spent heavily on youth development.
Correct.
Right? There are structures where you're paying for coaches, players, ensuring that they're getting the best of best practices, learning about, aspects which are fundamental, which all go into the sort of, back of the mind when you're not focused on the product when you're watching it. The average fan might not understand the amount of work that it takes to get a player down from the 12 all the way up to the first team. But it is significant investment. An average player you would have spent close to, I mean, based on my rough estimates, around 25-30 lakhs developing a player across the years.
Yeah.
I'm talking about one player.
And you have, it's always a numbers game, right?
Exactly.
You don't know.
Yeah. So if it continues like this, we will be in trouble.
So what if AIFF were to come to you and say that, listen, we were not able to finalize anything with FSDL. ISL, the way it stands, does not exist anymore. We are setting up a new league. It's going to be a combination of I-League and ISL teams. That will be our top tier league. We will cut the salaries potentially down to 50%. That becomes the cap. And there is a license fee, which is potentially somewhere in the tune of, let's say, 7-8 crores, which is significantly lower than what was paid in the past for ISL. Do you think a new league with 10, 12, 14 clubs can be set out like that? Because I feel like there's also investment made by so there's commitment to ISL, and I really feel Reliance did a phenomenal job on this one thing, that they got some of the most premium business houses and people into I almost feel like ISL is the best crop of franchise owners or club owners, even better than IPL, better than any other league for that matter. So on one hand, there is this, let's say if I'm a Jamshedpur or I'm a Mohan Bagan or whatever, saying that, okay, I came into this because I trusted in the fact that Reliance could lead the way. Right? And if they are not here, we might or might not trust AIFF to run a successful league and, and be able to monetize it. But having said that, I've already invested 300, 400 crores, 250 crores, whatever it might be. And if my club just ceases to exist, all of that is down the toilet. Right? So I might as well still have my brand alive, maybe not as professional league, but at least sustain my brand and create valuation over a period of time, which was probably the original goal from a business perspective. So you think, and from AIFF's perspective, if you find 14 clubs, they're willing to pay 6, 7, 8 crores, right? That's around a kitty of 100 crores.
Yeah.
You run the league in 60, 70 crores, cut down on significant operational expenses, and still make the 30, 40, 50 that you were going to get from FSDL.
Yeah.
And it kind of can work. What would you think of that from a club's perspective?
It can work, but I have a couple of questions. On paper, your theory is sound, right? Sure. As a last gasp, I don't see why this structure cannot function, right? But if I put myself in the shoes of an investor and ask, okay, you want me to pay you 7-8 crores, which means you have around 50 crores, etc. and everything. Can anybody give me accountability of where these 50 crores go and what do they do? Because, okay, we're playing if you're asking me to do this, you're asking me to play the numbers game, the long game of being somebody who invests money, creates value, and moves forward. How do I create value? If my club is worth, say, 50 crores right now, if I were to sell it tomorrow morning, 50 crores, you're telling me that you want me to put another, say, 20, 30 crores in over the years, and then maybe, say, 10 years down the line, I'm able to sell it at a valuation of 100 crores. How does that 100 crore valuation appear? That only appears when I have people, wanting to buy the club. And they would want to buy the club when they believe that the system is sustainable to a certain extent, but also thriving commercially. And that only happens when I know that the sport in the country is getting more eyeballs and visibility and so forth. For that, you need a very stable base, right? Without trying to take pot shots at anybody, if you look at the last 5 seasons of the I-League, which is run not by the commercial partners, but rather by the AIFF, does that inspire a lot of confidence in the way it has been run? Because teams don't know which fixture they're playing 1 week before.
Okay, let me place another layer here. Let's say I'm AIFF. I come to you and I say that ISL can't happen. New league. Invite you to come in. We'll cut the cost structures. We'll reduce the license fee. We'll try to make it more sustainable. The clubs can decide a management team. Right? Pick the best of the agencies. I mean, you name it. And best executives. This is the budget. I've allocated X amount of money to run, to have production, to have a management team for operations. And the clubs form a consortium and they can have a vote or whatever, kind of a common system. And you allow this team, and we'll ensure that this team runs the way it runs. And AIFF is not running the league. They are owners of the league. It's run by an independent management organization, which is kind of nominated by the clubs, and we create value. So the question is, there's always going to be a challenge with the IFF potentially doing that. But would you rather, is it a sunk cost is what I'm trying to say? Like, let's say that 300 crores is a sunk cost, or would you rather say, okay, let's try to take a chance with this new league. Maybe we lose another 50, but maybe it survives and then at least our club survives.
No, I agree with you. Fair enough. If that is indeed the structure, then we can move forward with that.
It can be considered.
But there is one big question mark in all of that, right? You still do need commercial partners to work with you. You still need a broadcaster, right? And right now, the current broadcasting deal underpins the entire economics of what most clubs work with and stuff. So if you do not have a broadcast partner, you will still have it. And right now, that is a huge value that we have with Reliance. That they are what was Geo before, Geo Cinema, which was a broadcaster, and now with the
Geo
Hotstar, they bring that value, right? Essentially, if you look at anywhere around the world, why are the English Premier League clubs the ones who are able to heavily spend? Because they have a huge broadcast deal underpinning it across various parts of the world, right? So ultimately, you need that funding to come in. And while we can run the league, if the marketability of it and the viability of it is not good enough, it's not reaching the masses, then it's never going to think. Just going back to what I was saying, the way I see a club becoming valuable from, say, 50 crores to 100 crores is, if one, there's a certain amount of stability, which means that the league needs to be running year on year without having much hiccups and all that. And two, if the sport gains more prevalence in the country. The only way I see the sport gaining more prevalence in the country is, for me, one simple factor. If the Indian national team does well. The only way the Indian national team will do well is if there are more and more players coming through who are not considering ISL as the glass ceiling and believe that they need to go out and actually explore their talents outside the country, right? And the only way that happens is if clubs invest a lot more in the youth development, etc. and everything. But the reason I asked you is what happens with those 50 crores is that is a big question. If you're telling me those 50 crores goes towards infrastructure, development of youth players, coaching, and the peripheral ecosystem that needs to be built up around it, then fair enough. If it goes towards development or creating opportunities for the clubs to then be able to sort of, speed up the process of youth development, then that makes sense. But if it goes simply towards costs and management of expenses, then I'm not very keen on signing up to that.
Yeah, but it can't be profit in the.
We've seen it happen firsthand. Right?
Yeah.
So it needs to go back into the ecosystem in a very transparent manner, where everybody knows where this money is going, because then that allows us to then know that the ecosystem will gradually grow. Because I'll tell you this, nothing unites our country quite like a national team taking global stage.
No doubt
if
about it.
Indian national team explodes India is right now, I think, ranked 133rd or 136th in the world, right? If you bring that number to 80, I promise you the interest in the sport will double to what it is. If there's 100 million viewers right now, that's not the number. But if it was 100, I guarantee the number would be 200.
I've seen sponsorship decks central decks where it says 333 million plus.
Okay, if it's 330 million, I promise you that number will hit
But
500.
then there are no sponsors still.
Exactly,
so,
right? Yeah.
So I was talking to one of the technical directors from within our system, like an ex-professional player now, like a senior coach.
Yeah.
And he said that, of course, we talked about this challenge, right? Let's say if you're a good quality 21-year-old today, and you're getting a contract worth 70, 80 lakhs or 1 crore or 50 lakhs or whatever in India. But you also have the option of playing, let's say, third division in Spain. Now, from a development perspective, we know that the third division in Spain, 1 or 2 years there would mean a lot. But you might get paid like 2,000-3,000 euros a month, or not even, right? So to make a good living, and the last 10 years of their lives would have been just struggle, and a lot of investment and sacrifices and so on. So I don't blame the player to say, okay, I'm going to take the 60 lakh contract or 1 crore contract and not go and struggle in Spain. But if we were to say that we pick the top 100 players who are from 18 to potentially 22 of our country, and we do a partnership with the Portuguese league or the Spanish league or whatever, like wherever we think we are getting the best deal possible, and we ship these players there, and they're playing in different clubs, third division, fourth division, some potentially in the second division, and we actually fund some of their opportunity loss. So let's say we won't pay you 60 lakhs, but we might pay you 20 lakhs or 30 lakhs, right? And you pay a little bit to the club. Maybe that's a kitty of 30-40 crores, that's all. And then you have 3 or 4 years where all of these players have played abroad, and when they come back into ISL, they bring a lot of like value to the table. And this guy was like, it's just because the decision making is not from developing Team India, it becomes very difficult to have a practice like this. But I agree with you that at the end of the day, the national team has to start doing better. And unfortunately, we are worse off today from when ISL started. And it's not really ISL's responsibility, but everyone blames ISL. Like
it's not. Why is the ISL responsible for the performance of the national team?
Exactly. I mean, if you look at 15 years, 50 crores, 15 years, that's 750 crores. That should have gone into national team development.
Exactly. Yeah. As far as I understand it, in my humble opinion, the ISL's responsibility is to create a platform where the average Indian footballer has more visibility than ever before. It brings commercial viability to clubs, which allows them then to invest more into youth development. But how the national team does is not their responsibility, because they don't choose the coach. They don't choose which players are called up to the national team.
They choose the training, the methodology, the youth system.
Exactly. That's not their responsibility. So it's not on the ISL.
But there is this sentiment amongst fans that because the fact that Indian team is not doing as well as, but I mean, it's doing terribly, and it was not great to start with, that somehow ISL is the evil. Do you kind of acknowledge that is the view?
I don't, to be very honest, and it's not because I'm a stakeholder and I'm somebody who's working in the ISL or with one of the clubs. I don't understand the concept of ISL being the ones or the clubs being responsible for it, because all the clubs have done since inception. I mean, see, if you're looking at this from a simple perspective of, if everybody believes that ISL and the clubs are in this to make money, trust me, these are all astute businessmen and women, right? Let's keep that in mind. Right? These are not idiots who've just been picked up off the street and said, okay, let's run a league, and you guys have some spare money in your pockets which just happen to be there by chance. They know what they're doing. If they're looking at it from a business and commercial perspective, they would have all long folded after 2 seasons of thing, right? So if they're pumping all this money into it, then it's with some idea of, contributing and giving back to sport in the country, right? And choosing football as their medium to do so. So if the intention has always been right, that we develop players, we get players to move into a better level of talent, which allows them to get in. And ISL was simply the platform for that talent to then be showcased and highlighted. So I don't see why they're saying that ISL is the reason for it, because sure, people are saying this, but I can't think of anybody who can give me 5 valid reasons as to give me the correlation between ISL happening and the players not playing at the same level. I don't think that there's a direct correlation.
In fact, it should be the opposite, other way around.
It's an easy target for people to say that it's because of the ISL, the national team is not performing well. Because during ISL, also national team. So in 2019, when India beat Thailand 4-1 in the Asian Cup, why was ISL not then at fault or given the credit? Right? Because if indeed we're beating Thailand, which was considered one of our better results and all that, and when India drew with Qatar, a country with vast more sums of money, why was it not then? Because honestly, those results are one-offs. When you can consistently put a run of results together,
then it's a different story.
That's the thing, right? Because see, if I play you 100 times, there is a possibility that on one particular day, Vivek, you might not be at your best. And I might be able to get the better on one day. 99 times out of 100, you will be. Right? We need to stop looking at those sort of, one-offs as huge achievements, because it is what it is. It is a one-off. What you need to do is consistently put together a set of results that allow you to gain the confidence that we are indeed, this is our level. Maybe the ranking that is there right now is a true reflection of where we were. Maybe we were not the 90th best country in the world. Maybe the 136, 140, wherever we are, is a reflection of where we are right now. I mean, look at the national team. Put them against, take the foreigners away from the ISL clubs. Take any club in the country, put the Indian players together. The quality of the game will automatically drop for the simple reason that they are not at the level as any other country that we have been playing with of late in the recent. Okay, we played against Hong Kong, where we lost 1-0, where they had a few imports, etc., and everything and all that. But even then, we did not dictate the tempo of the game. There was no right to say that we had to win that game because Hong Kong was ranked 156 or whatever and all that. Maybe that is also a reality then. That maybe 136 is still being
generous.
Maybe that is indeed the case. You need to develop players who are able to control and dictate games at will, and that will only happen if those players play outside of Indian shores, because this is the level of Indian football right now. So you're not going to become a standout player in this. You will be the glass ceiling in what is a very low ceiling.
So now, of course, there's a lot of confusion with regards to what will happen. But if you were to look back last 10 years, 15 years, actually from the inception, what would be some of the changes you would make in the structure that if we were to be sitting in a place which is better off than where we are actually?
I would force every club to invest significantly more amounts of money in infrastructure, in youth development, and ensure that it became almost an obligation that every club did so, with creating a certain amount of accountability. I'll tell you why. Right now, we've all invested, I say we, not like I put my money in, but the generous owners of the clubs have invested close to 250 to 300 crores into these clubs and all that. Beyond the brand that they have, what infrastructure does each of these clubs have? The success of a club is underpinned by sort of the infrastructure, because honestly, I'll tell you this, right? Right now, today, I have Sandesh Jingan. Okay, he's the captain of the Indian national team. He's one of the best centre-backs, if not the best centre-back the country has on offer right now. He's our centre-back as well, starting 11 centre-back. Now, today, if Sandesh were to move from our club to, say, another club in the league or another club outside of the country, etc., and so forth and all that, I would have to replace him. The first thing I will go is look in the market to see what is available, which means I would have to pay a transfer fee, etc., and so forth. But honestly, the first reaction that should be is, can I look in my own youth development program and see whether I have a capable replacement? This is the model that functions. This is the reason why the likes of Brighton and, for example, Red Bull Leipzig, all these clubs, they'd succeed because they have automatic replacements in their own backyard waiting. Because if somebody moves on, there's always a ready replacement. Now, that happens when you have a very good infrastructure base. I'm not just talking about players and coaches, but you also need to have, after all this money, except Jamshedpur FC, which
historically had
which had that stadium. There's no other club that owns a stadium there is no other club that has a club, I'm saying, not the corporate entity that is owned by them, has their own high performance trading center base and all that, because that is where you bring those changes up, right? Those small percentages, that's where they tend to add up, right? And now people need to be exposed to that environment, not from the age of 18, 19, 20, not even 15. They need to be exposed to it from the age of 10. And 10 is also a little late. For me, if a child is not already familiar with the game in terms of his comfort level with the ball by the age of 9 and 10, he's already behind the 8 ball. Because everything after that is a catch-up. I mean, there are players who are playing in the ISL who started kicking the ball at the age of 16, and they have progressed to become professional footballers and have made a good career out of it in the ISL, right? That speaks highly of their sort of, motivation to push really hard, but it also speaks poorly of the average standard of the league that a player of that quality. You will not hear of an example like this in European football, because kids there are given a football at the age of 4, 5, right? So when they're comfortable with the ball, see, ultimately the game is very simple. You can be the biggest, tallest, and strongest guy, but if you don't know how to handle that round thing, you will invariably be shown up at a high standard, right? The player has to be comfortable. If you take this player and put him in a European context, pick our best national team player, put him in a European context, he will not have the same technical and tactical understanding. Physical, he might. An average European player runs around 12 and a half, 13 kilometers in a game. Indian players are not too far behind. They're around 11, 12-ish. They're not far behind. Physically, they're not far behind. They might lack a little bit here and there, but they're not too far behind. But it's a technical and tactical understanding. An average player in a European or South American ecosystem has already played close to 3,000 competitive games before he's kicked his first professional game off.
And here we'd be talking about less than a tenth of that. Yeah.
Exactly, right? So we can train players, but if the ecosystem does not provide for opportunities for them to compete, then you will have a problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the same thing that will happen as well if you do not have the ISL. India plays, I think, Iran and a few other countries from the SAFA in the SAFA tournament that has been announced. Now, those players will go in under because they've not had competition. And if there is no ISL, that competition level will, I guarantee you, drop again.
Yeah.
Right? Because,
or they might not be.
Exactly. Because I'll tell you this, if the ISL goes away, I'll also tell you what else goes away. The quality of players that our players are currently playing with. The foreign players that are there
that goes away fully. Yeah,
because those go away. And ultimately, you raise your standard when you play with competitive players around you, players who are of a higher quality. I think that is the one thing that the ISL had and has done well, is that the quality of foreigners that have come into this country are significantly better than they were pre-ISL. So you take all of this away from the equation, then all of a sudden the country is poorer in terms of the quality on offer to the coaches, to the players, and all that. Because now I'll tell you this, if the league disappears, tell me the foreign coaches that are there in the country right now. I'm not saying they're the Pep Guardiolas and Jose Mourinho's of the world, but
a lot,
the next batch of coaches who might want to come and interact here will also drop in quality. So
all the foreign players and the technical staff,
so
and
all of that disappears as well, right? So we need to be mindful of all of them also being very important to the league and its sustenance and survival.
So one is, you would say that more kind of stringent norms around development and
100%,
infrastructure.
100%.
What else would you have done differently? Commercially, would you have done something differently?
Yes, I think a lot of focus was built up around that point in time in trying to sort of create an ecosystem where we could bring as many new fans in as possible. When we should have tried to ensure that the ones that we already had at our right in front of us as our low-hanging fruit was consolidated upon, because European clubs are built on one thing, it's culture, right? So that culture is built when the person has been attending football matches week on week, year on year, decade on decade, right? It's a traditional thing that I do this because my father did it, my father did it because my grandfather did it, and so forth, right? So when you had existing sort of footballing cultures, I think we should have focused on getting them built up, because what they will do is word of mouth. They will pass on values. So if you have, say, fans who supported FC Goa 10 years ago, and if their children have now grown up, these guys will invariably be die-hard fans because their father supports the club. There must be some logical reason as to why he's supporting it.
Yeah.
So you would have automatically got those on board. I think we were so caught up in trying to build our numbers in terms of, I have such a wide variety that I forgot that the key variety was the ones who are already hardcore fans of the club. We needed to create that culture, that appointment viewing, that come Saturday 3 p.m. or, Saturday 3 p.m., but Saturday 5 p.m. or Sunday 7:30 p.m. I know that my club is playing and I am expected to be in attendance because it is an appointment viewing for me that I have to be there. It's part of my weekly process. I think we should have focused a lot more on that, and also focused a lot more on sort of the states where football is already very prevalent. Kerala, Goa, West Bengal, the 8 states in the Northeast. These guys were all football prevalent. Focused heavily on those, I think, is something that we should have done as well. We tried with the metros. Of course, adds a lot of commercial value, right? If you have Mumbai, Delhi, Hyderabad, Bangalore, all of these guys have it. I think Bangalore FC has done a good job of building that core base. But if you look at sort of Mumbai, they don't particularly have a core base. They've begun doing something in the last couple of years once the team was a lot more successful and represented in the Asian stage. But Delhi, there was a team.
Oh my God, Delhi was a disaster.
Exactly, right? So we went to cities where possibly we needed a little bit more of groundwork done before we went there, because then your proof of concept and your product would have been so strong that the lure of a football team coming to your city would have possibly been a little bit more elevated, as against introducing the concept there itself and then falling a little hard on our hands.
Yeah. And what did you think about, so 2 things I wanted your opinion on. One is this whole thing of broadcaster being a shareholder in the league.
Yeah.
And the second of getting all the big foreign player names and spending a lot of money and of course added value.
Yeah.
So just wanted your opinion on these 2 things, which were kind of key pillars of at the inception.
Yeah. So I mean, when it began, a broadcaster being on board was not a terrible idea from the initial thought process, because it meant that there was a guaranteed product. It was going out on, at that point in time, was Star Sports, right? Star Sports is the biggest sports network in the country, invariably has the biggest reach. So which means having them on board meant you had their skin in the game, which meant that your platform that they were providing had the biggest, widest reach that you could possibly ask for. So in that sense, it made a lot of sense. But gradually, as you go down the years, and once, because at that point in time, the stadiums were full, the star power that the league had was very high and all that. So in that sense, it makes great. But gradually, as you go along through the years, you realize that, hold on a second. The broadcasting value is great when everybody's watching it. But now when we need some more money to come into the thing, we might need a broadcaster that is actually able to give us a little bit more commercial value as against them. Because at the start, you're down 10 crores or 15 crores. You're still okay. You're still sitting okay. Then you're down 150. You're starting to think, okay, oof.
Yeah, what's going on?
Then you double that number to 300 crores and you're like, okay, actually, maybe I don't mind having some commercial income come in, because that is what will allow me to continue to sustain what I'm doing. The second question was the staff. I particularly was not impressed with the idea of, I was not involved in the ecosystem in the first season. I was not in the country at that point in time. But I happened to be here when the ISL was being played, and I attended one match. And the novelty of seeing a Nicolas Anelka, a Robert Pires, a Freddie Lundberg on the pitch was great. But having been exposed to European football, I was like, yeah, but the quality is not really there.
Yeah, and that only happens once, right?
Exactly, then, yeah. I mean, I saw one game where it was actually the very first game that I worked in the ISL as, was when FC Goa played Delhi Dynamos, and Roberto Carlos was the coach, subbed himself on.
I remember exactly that,
blasted out of the stadium and subbed himself off. And I was like, great value, because everybody for the 15 seconds was excited about where that ball was going to end up. But I said it really decimates the quality of the league, because it makes it a little bit more gimmicky in that sense.
Yeah.
I think for me, the real value, if you ask the average fan who's followed the ISL over the past 10 years, they will not remember Roberto Carlos's free kick as a highlight, but they might possibly remember a Ferran Coromina scoring a hat-trick against Bengaluru, which marked the ushering of this guy in the Indian Super League when he was a goal machine.
Yeah.
Or they might remember Marcelinho tearing up defenses, dribbling past 5 players to score goals, right?
Yeah.
They remember Ian Hume, who was a very, very decent professional, but never reached the pinnacle of global football.
True.
But they do, like in Kerala, if you walk around the streets, there's more likelihood of you finding a shirt of Ian Hume than the marquee player who, case in point is, even I don't even remember who the marquee player was. Right?
Yeah, that's true.
Because he became a fan favorite because he performed. Sure, the audiences are new to the sport, but they're not completely sort of forgot. It's not like they don't know what it is.
But it also ties into the
want
point
quality.
you made earlier that it's not really about like you would have preferred if that there was more like there was more given to the actual true fans, like there was more for them.
Absolutely.
As against just going crazy about building new fans. And I think that ethos kind of was there for the marquee players as well, that you bring in the big names. I always remember, and I talk a lot about this, is we had David Trezeguet in our camp for one season, and he was supremely unfit. And I mean, it is what it was what it was, but obviously quality, and all I recall of that season is consistent fights between the coach and the player, because he, in his mind, championship mentality, like always wants to be on the pitch, wants to kind of make an impact, wants to win, but he's not there to be able to deliver that. And the coach is always looking at the best 11, the team that gels, and there was always kind of fighting to a point where we were playing away in Kerala, and right before the match, a big fight broke out in our system, and the Kerala players are all there, and it was like a fight towards playoffs, and it was just a joke, So that was always So Ravi, I want to talk about FC Goa now. I mean, you've been kind of in the system for now almost a little over 10 years, and must have seen almost everything, all the changes, the highs and the lows. One kind of memory that's etched in my mind is the 2015 final, and we were talking about it offline as well. You were there at the club at the time?
I was, that was my first season with the club.
So FC Goa reaches the finals against Chennaiyin. The final is in Goa.
Exactly.
And even though Chennaiyin I think it was like going in, it was going to be quite an even match. So talk us through what happened that day.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely eventful. I think it would be an understatement. I remember the euphoria in Goa was big, because I joined the club at the start of pre-season to just sort of get a hang of it. But I was very much rushed into the entire thing because I didn't really have time to adapt, to understand what was going on. I was like, pre-season was well underway when I joined, and then a couple of weeks later the matches got started, right? So then once the ISL starts, there's no time to breathe. You're just moving from fixture to fixture and so forth. And Goa had a great start to that season. I think they ended up actually topping the table.
Correct.
And playing a very enterprising brand of football. Zico was a fantastic coach, huge star power.
Fan favorite as well.
Favorite. A lot of Brazilians in the team, a lot of quality. Goan players were also part of the team that were also making a big impact. So it's not like they were just there for the sake of it. They're not token players. Romeo Mandar were lighting up the wings. So everybody wanted a piece of the club, right? Club just can't stop winning. Make it everywhere. I remember we played Delhi in the semi-finals. Roberto Carlos's team was there. We lost the first 1-0.
And then turned it around. I think it was 3-0 or something.
Yeah, but when everybody came back, I didn't travel for that game, but when everybody came back, they're like, relax, we're going to do them in Goa 3-0, 4-0. And it was indeed 3-0 in the second leg. So the confidence was through the roof. Tickets were selling at an all-time premium. I mean, you were a very astute businessman if you bought a ticket normally and then sold it in black, because you probably made 10 extra money.
Oh, wow.
Unheard of. It was incredible. I mean, there was not a seat left in that stadium that day, I remember. There was so much pressure on the owners to just provide tickets that even if that stadium capacity, at which point was 19.5 or something, even if you doubled it, you would have sold out within a matter of minutes of doubling that capacity. It was insane. Just because it was all there. The previous season, Goa was knocked out in very heartbreaking circumstances, lost a penalty shootout in Fatorda. So this was the chance to sort of, complete the entire circle and go ahead and win, whatever those 2 years of momentum had. Finals in Goa. So you can't have a better sort of script in terms of, trying to complete the fairy tale, right? Goa goes a goal behind through penalty. Then they equalize. Then they again concede a penalty, which is then saved in the 58th, 60th minute. Then Goa goes and scores in the 87th or 89th minute. And I remember sitting in the stands and there was a party. I mean, people assumed it was a foregone conclusion that Goa had won the title. Everybody. It was, the who's who of the league was sitting. Virat Kohli, there's a video of him. Even now, if you go and watch the highlight, he's jumping around everybody and anybody in celebration when the second goal goes in. And they said it's a mere formality now. Surely in Goa with this euphoric crowd, they're going to win. And then bang, one goal goes in. And then before people can even realize that, hold on a second, we might have to go to extra time and this game is back in the balance. Bang, the second one goes in. And then, obviously it's just a complete downer. And I've never seen sort of the mood of a place change like that ever in anything
in a few
my
minutes.
life.
Yeah.
It's a matter of, I think, 3 or 4 minutes. And the whole thing is just turned upside down on its head. And then next thing we know, okay, players are then congratulating each other and sort of, commiserations being passed around and stuff. And then we hear that there's a scuffle breaking out. I was not on the pitch. I was just in the stands watching sort of, the thing unfolding, waiting for the prize distribution ceremony to happen. Things unfold, and next thing we know, that a player is now being accused. The club owners are not very happy with sort of the conduct of the player and so forth and all that. And then the team does not show up for the prize distribution ceremony. Now, all of this at that point in time, I was just, I was just a communications manager, so I didn't really have.
And just a few months into the club,
exactly. So I didn't have the detailed sort of minute by minute running of what had happened and what had transpired, and the conversations were at a much higher level. Next thing we know, there's a Times of India article that shows the player sitting in a police station, and it escalated beyond, I think, what anybody had even wildly imagined. Things transpire. Then finally Elano gets out, goes home, and then we were told that everybody was very unhappy with the system. And of course, it was very normal that people would be unhappy with the situation, because it just brought the league into a little bit of disrepute, which meant that then the owners all of a sudden were not going to be at the club anymore. And we had, I think, about 6-7 months, there was only about 5 or 6 people at the time who were full-time staff, and we would all be going to office for the best part of 4-5 months, just looking at each other without really any clear direction of how we should function,
what's happening,
and all that. We were receiving salaries, but we didn't really know what the outcome of this would be, whether FC Goa would cease to exist, would there be new people, would the current owners continue, because there was no clarity. It was just a little bit of silence around us. And then the new owners came in, I think, less than a month before the new season began, or maybe a month and a half. And then it was just, everything had to be put in place very quickly. Extravagant spending happened because the owners at that point in time were not very familiar with sort of the requirements and the demands and the needs of the ISL. And the team was traveling to Rio all of a sudden for pre-season, which for me was an incredible waste of money.
All the way to Rio. I mean, of all the places in the world you could pick, if you pick the furthest spot, Rio would probably be ranking right up there. And the team somehow... And was it with some club or some private?
No, it was done with Zico's academy there. But obviously, even getting a player across there...
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about a squad of 30, 40 and the
support
staff and all. They're talking about a 50-person entourage. You're talking about dropping 1 crore at least on
just on flights
alone. And then everything else that entails of being there and so forth and all that. And so that season we finished bottom of the table. And that is when sort of it transpired that, hold on a second, we can't run a football club in this manner. And the owners at that point in time, Akshay, who was a co-owner at the time and the president of the club till as of 2 seasons ago, basically these guys decided that, hold on a second, we're going to wipe the slate clean here. First, get an understanding of what we want to achieve as a football club. Do we want to have an overarching vision? And it was not something that said, okay, from thin air, we just pull this out and say, this is a template. We traveled, Akshay and I traveled to a lot of clubs in Europe to try and understand each one's way of working. Introduce them to Athletic Bilbao, Barcelona, Borussia Dortmund, Benfica, because each one had takeaways that you would sort of, want to inculcate into your sort of culture and structure and vision of the club. And from there, we gradually grew. And the first season was not about signing some superstar names and all that. It was just like understanding what it took to be successful in the ISL, signing the right profiles, going to the draft with a very clear mindset, identifying talent, and then building upon it. But at the same time, in the back end, we started doing up the entire youth development program, right? Highlighting the fact that we needed Goan football players to represent FC Goa was priority number 1. Ensuring that they had a good coaching system behind them was priority number 2. And 3 was ensuring that they all had competition throughout the year, but not just like 5-10 games, but 30, 40 games a year.
Yeah.
Right. And then we sort of built that up, and then gradually success came to us because year 1 was just about getting into the playoffs because we'd missed out on the previous one.
Yeah.
But also playing a brand of football that endeared the average fan to say, hold on a second, even if I don't support FC Goa,
I love how
I
they
like
play.
what they play.
Yeah.
I want to see what those players are up to and how they perform on the pitch. So we wanted people to get endeared to FC Goa. And then gradually grew from there, season 1, season 2, season 3 of the time Sergio was the head coach of the club. I think we were one of the most enterprising teams in terms of you score 1, I score 2, you score 4, my intention is to score 5. So that was the football that we wanted to play, because the average Goan fan, I think, is quite knowledgeable about football. He wants to be entertained. He wants value for his money.
Yeah.
So we wanted to create that sort of, ecosystem where people came to not just win games, but also to win in style.
Yeah.
And sort of that allowed us one key thing, right? Identify a brand of football that we wanted to play, which we stuck to despite coaches changing and all the way up until now as well, is that Goan players is a key sort of function for us as a club, that we want to develop Goan talent, because we're in Goa. Our primary responsibility is to Goan players. If we do have good players from the other states for competitive reasons, obviously we'll bring them in. But we wanted to champion the Goan talent. But two, also the style of football that we played, where it was a lot to do with the ball, we wanted our players to be comfortable. Because if you don't have players who are comfortable with the ball, the glass ceiling will be a certain extent. It goes back to what I said originally about, the technical and tactical understanding. We wanted players to say, give me the ball because I'm comfortable with it. Not like this is a ticking time bomb that
just sort of
move it on and then, hey,
yeah.
it's your headache. If it explodes in your hand, then good luck to you.
Yeah.
We wanted to play that. And then success followed, right? I mean, we finished third or fourth in the 17-18 season. 18-19 season, we finished second. Only separated by a head-to-head, because and then 19-20, we actually won the league and qualified for the Champions League.
Yeah. But also I feel like as an outsider to the to the club, and I've had some interaction with the club. We've done a couple of deals here or there, and a couple of my past colleagues have worked in FC Goa and so on. So I've been kind of in and around the club, but still obviously an outsider. I think the fact that you've been there so long and grew from kind of a junior to mid-level role to running the club speaks volumes not only about you as a professional, but also about the owners and how they see the club, right? Because there's obviously going to be the Real Madrid kinds of approaches to say, let's buy everyone. And one season we did that in Pune City. But what we've seen in the long run, to stick to your philosophy, build a long-term vision, build like the core values of the club, develop and invest in youth, and those things kind of just bear fruits over a period of time. And that doesn't mean you'll win all the time, but it means that you'll be competitive all the time. You'll play a particular brand of football. And I think the fact that you have, as a chief exec and as a professional and not a person on the pitch, has gone through this journey also speaks volume about the ethos of the club, right? So how do you now see, like, where does the club sit? Like, are they happy with where they are? I mean, assuming ISL continues and things on that side is kind of resolved, where do you see the next 5 years, 10 years of your journey and of how the owners feel about the club?
I mean, just going back to sort of, the growth and everything, I think a great amount of credit has to go to the owners, because they provided everybody a very clear platform to work with, very transparent in their communication, and backed it as well. It was not like at the drop of a hat, let's now change strategy and do something different. There were seasons when we were like, okay, and now I'm not just talking about the first team, even the youth teams as well, because it's not every season that you'll produce 10 players who can move up to the first team.
Correct.
There might be a season when you have 9 players move up, and the next 2 seasons you might have none. But the change in strategy was never something that was discussed. It was like, we continue to persist with what we're doing, because it is sometimes the way football works, right? There are seasons when you can play the most fantastic brand of football, but not end up on the winning side at the end of it. But we knew that, as you mentioned, it would allow us to consistently compete. So for us, that was the one key thing. And the other thing was, let's now compete, but trying to find those finer margins through which we can compete, rather than just outspend everybody possible in the league. Because that is not something that, I think the taste of victory is a lot more sweeter when you feel like you found the smaller margins.
Absolutely.
As against saying, you know what, I've outspent everybody else and I've beaten you guys on paper already. So everything that happens on the pitch is a mere formality.
The Mohan Bagans of the league. Just not saying anything.
You said it. So for us, that was very important, right? And it allowed not just me. I mean, I am an example because I am sitting in the position of the CEO, but there is at least 15 other people in the club that I can name who have been with the club, who have grown from junior level or entry level roles into levels of senior management within the club as well. And this is across the board, from technical, commercial, marketing, administration roles, and even coaching as well. I mean, if you look at it, we have, from the time that we have had 4 coaches come through our club who started out with a B license or C license and get pro licenses. We've had players in our clubs. I think we are the club that has the most number of players who've clocked up 100 or more appearances for the club, right? Speaks volumes of, say, a Seritin Fernandez at the age of 23, 24, joining FC Goa. And 10 years down the line, he's still with us, right? Brandon clocked up 100 appearances before he moved on. Mandar clocked up. We've had foreign players clock up 100 appearances for FC Goa and move on, right? So it all speaks volumes about sort of the stability that the owners provided for the club. because then everybody who walked in there knew that this is a club that doesn't change too much in the sense of how they approach things. Sure, we might need to change personnel because that's the natural cycle of a football club and
Absolutely.
individuals and professionals. We understand that. But that base will never change. The core philosophy of ensuring that people are well looked after does not change. Opportunity to provide growth for people to grow is also something that never changes. And also giving people a platform to then display their talent in whatever field or form or shape it might be is also something we don't. And also being true to the fact that we are a club that is based in Goa. So we want to be as local in our connect as we can be, is something also that's never changed in that sense.
What are some of the fan expectations that you're not able to meet at the moment?
I think,
of course, winning is one.
Yeah.
But apart from that, do you feel you're doing enough for the fans? Because a lot of clubs, I believe, are not, and I always have seen that Goa probably has a special relationship with the fans, more so than potentially most other clubs.
Yeah. I think there's two ways to. Let me give you two perspectives. There's my personal perspective, where I am also very demanding, and I always feel like we can do a lot more. And there's also the fans' perspective. I think the one chip on everybody's shoulder, which is the common denominator, is that we've not won the ISL up until time, the cup, which is something that everybody, just because of the way how close we've gotten and how agonizing, and we found fantastic ways of not winning the thing when we were in prime position to do so, has, I think, left a bit of a bitter taste in the mouth of all the fans. So I think that is the one thing that would allow us to sort of, alleviate our club to where it is currently to sort of the next level. But also, I think we can do a lot more to engage with the local audience than we have been doing. Because right now we're going more or less from an event to event perspective. Okay, match to match, match to match, match to match. But we're trying to increase that by engaging a lot more with the fans. For us, a key priority are the season ticket holders. Because ultimately, remember, these are your customers who are showing faith and loyalty to you. So give them everything that you possibly can. I mean, examples are, for example, last season we had a jersey that we wore for one of the games where every season ticket holder's name was printed onto the jersey, and it's a memorabilia that they will have for the rest of their season, right? So when we play a playoff game and all that, we give away or basically announce to the season ticket holders that their entry is free to that match because of the support and sustained sort of,
just
that we've had from them over the years. So in that sense, we need to do a lot more. But also from a younger perspective, I think we can go out and reach out to another segment of the audience that we've not quite reached out to just yet, which is the kids and their parents, because that is where the next generation of fans will come from, right? I want FC Goa to be the team that they aspire to play for in the immediate short term, hopefully, and to much bigger things after that. But also, it's the team where I want to go and watch on the weekend rather than say, I will wear a Manchester United jersey and watch Manchester United or Chelsea or Liverpool play on the weekend. If FC Goa is playing at home, I'd rather go and watch that. So I think we've done some amount of work there, but it's not been a consistent impact that we've been able to make in trying to get children more excited about FC Goa. There is a certain amount of core fan base that we have, but we want to get more and more of these guys involved in it, and especially the working younger audience as well, because those are the guys who will help spread word of mouth at this point.
So do you feel like Goa as a state, the fact that there is football following, like historically, is that a blessing or is it more of a challenge? I mean, to some extent, like if I'm so consistently watching European football, there's going to be definite drop in the quality. However, the local connect, the community, obviously what FC Goa can provide to me, a United or Arsenal will not be able to. But there's always these challenges, right? So do you see that as a positive or as a blessing, or is it more of a challenge?
I think in an ecosystem where everybody is struggling and grappling for eyeballs as much as we can, the fact that we have a fan base who's willing to look at that can never be considered a challenge. I think it's always good. It also means that it keeps us more accountable, right? An average Goan fan will know when the team is playing well and when it's not. And we're constantly reminded of that fact that if the team does not perform well, you will be told it does not perform well. I'd rather have a fan who's more demanding than a fan who's completely apathetic, because then that means that I've lost his attention. And in football, the currency that speaks the loudest is the attention of the common man, because they are the ones who will alleviate your club to being bigger than what it currently is. So for us, the more we have, that's fine. Criticism comes along with it. That's part and parcel of sort of, getting the buy-in of somebody, but we'd happily accept that. I'd rather have 100 comments telling me that you're not doing well, as against 2 comments that are telling me that I'm doing a fantastic job, but I'm limited to those 2. Because then that means that people are interested. As long as there's interest in the sport, it means it allows me to grow. So for sure, and that's, I think we've been very blessed with that, because the historical clubs in Goa, the Dempos, the Salgaonkars, the Churchill brothers, all these guys did a fantastic job. The Sporting Club de Goa, they did a fantastic job of ensuring that the culture was there and that it's been built up over the years. But also it has a lot to do with the inter-village football in Goa as well, right? So the sort of the big takeaway that the Portuguese sort of left behind in Goa was the fact that football became predominantly the most important sport in the state.
Yeah. It's also kind of a little bit of a pressure to continue to maintain that kind of legacy of football in the state, right?
Yeah.
Because if it dies in your watch, then you are the biggest club now, right?
Absolutely.
So, well, just the last one now, Ravi. How do you see what are the kind of on-pitch ambitions for the next few years? And also, how do you see 2 or 3 things that are more controllable for you to do for the club?
Yeah, our primary ambition is to, again, remain as competitive as possible. Just to give you sort of a little bit of an inside story, like whenever I go and meet a particular sponsor, they're looking at me and saying, hold on a second, your market is small. You're only 2 million people in Goa. But if your team was in, say, Mumbai or Bangalore or Hyderabad or Delhi, even for that matter, though it's not a big footballing population, I'm like, but you'd have 20, 30 million people, right?
Yeah.
Looking at your advertising, your branding and all that. They're like, but then they go, but we like the fact that you guys are consistent. That statistics basically tell us that even before the season begins, there's a 70% chance that you'll end up in the playoffs because your average is basically that.
Yeah.
So we will work with you because you guys provide the sort of stability that we look for. So for us, it's very important to maintain that stability because it also not just reflects upon the good functioning of the club, but it also is showing to us that commercial value can be derived from that as well. So we want to remain competitive. We want to push the standard as high as we possibly can, but not at any cost. It has to make sense to us. So for us, that is priority number 1. Priority number 2 for us is to develop players who can crack. The short-term ambition is the Asian market. And I'm talking about leaving the Indian subcontinent, moving abroad. I'm not saying European just yet because I think that is another 10 to 12 years away. But for us, we want to produce players that are capable of playing at the Asian level at least, because then it tells us that we're doing something that is pushing ourselves beyond just the Indian ecosystem. That is what we want to aspire to, because I'll tell you this, if that player goes and performs well, invariably some credit will go back to the club where he was developed.
No doubt.
That for me again is commercial value. That for me again is growth opportunity, because then people will be like, who is this club? What do they do well? What functions? And that means that if I have a success story to tell, then I have corporate interest in the club as well. So for us, that is point number 2. And the third one, if we do have significant amount of clarity and stability that we know that there is something happening for the next 10 to 15 years, invest in infrastructure that allows the club then to verge towards focusing on becoming sustainable, because infrastructure allows 2 things to happen. It brings you a different level of revenue sources as well.
True.
And secondly, even if, say, after you spend 300 crores right now, in your kitty, beyond the logo of your club, what
you
else
have something.
do you have?
Yeah.
If you have your own training fields, if you have your own high performance center, a stadium, I think might be a little ambitious, but if you have all of this, you have things that are existing beyond the whims and fancies of a couple of corporates deciding the future of the club. Say, because if my owner tomorrow decides, okay, I don't want to pump in so much money, because you have these variable sources of revenue, you're still able to sustain. Might be you might reduce that,
or at least you have
spending,
something.
But at least you have something to work towards, right?
Yeah.
That you then outgrow the need on individuals to fund the club and focus more on self-sustenance and thriving, rather than having to hope that people continue to retain their interest. So I think that would be the 3 priorities for us.
Ravi, thank you so much. And I really hope that we can see ISL very soon this season.
Absolutely.
That probably is a battle that's beyond the club's kind of decision making. But I think for Indian football to continue to grow, that's probably, 1 season loss will be way too many, right? So I really hope we can find some solution, and good luck to you this season. I'll definitely would love to come to Goa, one of the games. And
thank you. I mean, the one game that I can guarantee is that on the 13th of August, we will be playing an AFC playoff game.
That'd be something.
For the Champions League 2 slot. So, most welcome to
that. I would actually take you up on that.
Sure thing.
Thank you so much. Thanks for your time.
Cheers, man. Thanks.
Appreciate it.